Well, hello everyone, and welcome to this Blue Heron mixed media painting process video. I'm starting off with just laying down a foundation, which is just an abstract background. No real plan here. In fact, the plan wasn't originally to put a blue heron on here to begin with, but if you do have an interest in painting along with me, head over to my Patreon, where I have the real-time video as well as a variety of reference photos, supply lists, the colors on my palette, and all the materials that I use so that you can create your own blue heron painting. And when I say that I originally wasn't going to have a blue heron on here, I was just playing around with colors and just making an abstract background. What ended up happening was that I started to see kind of this landscape emerging as I went along, and I was thinking to myself, this could actually end up being something really cool. So I decided that I was going to make a landscape out of the abstract background, and so I started painting in tree lines and kind of creating this almost like a lake or a pond. And one of the beautiful things about living on coastal New England is that we not only have a lot of beautiful ponds and lakes, but we also have shorebirds, and great blue herons are extremely prevalent here in the summertime, and they're kind of everywhere. And we also have beautiful sunsets because, it's one of those areas where we got a lot of weather that rolls in, and we have fog and we have thunderstorms, and we end up having some very colorful sunsets around here. And I love my birds. If you've watched any of my videos before, you know how much I love my birds. So inspiration is all around at this time of year, unlike the winter where everything dies and it's gray and it's awful. But this time of year, you can get so much inspiration from nature, which is why I actually decided to take my easel and all my paints outside and paint in my yard. And it was a beautiful day until the wind came out of nowhere. Like I said, living on the East Coast, you get a lot of weather that comes through. And it got really windy where it had been still all day, and all of a sudden it just was like a gale blowing and I had to move inside. But I did get a few hours outside enjoying the weather. I ended up having to move into a shadier area because it started to get a little too hot where I had been located, and the colors started to look really weird because I was under an umbrella to kind of keep the sun off and to be able to film. But I ended up moving into a shady area so you can actually see the colors a lot better from here. Regardless, there is something incredibly soothing about being outside and being creative and listening to the birds, and just it's very, very relaxing. There's something very peaceful about it, and I would love to do it more often, but it doesn't always work out that well. This is a very windy area, so it does tend to kind of put a damper on having a canvas outside, because canvases are sort of like kites. They kind of get taken by the wind if you're not careful and you don't have them secured, and then all of your stuff starts blowing off of your table or wherever you have it placed. So that doesn't always work out so well, but once in a while you get a really nice morning where it's not super humid and you can go outside and you can kind of just paint and still be out in nature, which I absolutely love. So after my yard became sort of like a wind tunnel, I decided to come inside and continue on doing a bit of layering. So the layering process is kind of what gives the painting more depth and dimension, and really playing around with the layers. It's kind of a cool process because I feel like when you first start laying down paint and creating just this abstract background, it gives you other ideas that you can kind of build upon, and you can add things and then subtract things and add them back in until you get the desired effect that you want. And I decided that I would name my heron Wade because he's wading in the water, waiting to exhale, waiting to fly. He's Wade, and he's kind of adorable, although at the moment he looks a little bit angry. I ended up creating an angry heron at the beginning, and then later on when I decided to put more detail into his face, I'm like, man, he looks just really pissed off. I'm gonna have to change that and make him a happier heron. But, you know, such is life. I suppose he was angry at the beginning because he didn't like the way he looked, and I made him a lot prettier later. But there it is, and I'm creating some shady areas, some twigs, and really just playing with the background at the moment because I wanted it to have kind of this mystical feel. It's not a color palette that I normally use, which kind of gave me it gave me some ideas, and I really ended up liking the color palette. For some reason, I don't usually use a lot of purples and blues in my paintings, and I kind of wanted to use up some of the vast array of blue and purple paint that I had because I'm like, oh wow, I have a lot of these different colors. I should probably use them. So that's why I chose this color palette, and I do love the colors. I just tend to gravitate towards other colors when I create paintings. Kind of interesting what we gravitate towards, but expanding the horizons is one of the things that you have to occasionally do and get out of your comfort zone with your color palette, I suppose. I find that blues and purples are very calming colors. They're very relaxing, sort of serene, and I've been gravitating toward these colors lately, which is interesting because I usually gravitate towards more dynamic colors with reds and oranges and, you know, something that's either monochrome that has a splash of color in it. And lately I've been going through a blue phase, and it's interesting sometimes the phases that you go through, but maybe I've just been feeling really calm and serene and sort of looking for that in my own artwork. Who knows what happens in the inner workings of the artistic mind. I'm not really sure, but I think that's probably what's going on with me. Come to think of it, I actually have been feeling a lot more relaxed lately. If I really kind of think about how things have been going for me lately, I felt very serene. Interesting. I feel like I've just figured something out, like this has been a weird form of therapy for me doing this voiceover. Odd, as that might sound. And this is what happens when you do things completely unscripted. You end up babbling on about, I think I've been more relaxed lately, instead of talking about the actual art project that is in front of you. Interesting. So interesting. So here is where I actually started thinking about, gonna get rid of the angry blue heron and start making it a happier blue heron. And I didn't like the placement of the eye either. I felt like it was a little bit too far back. So I ended up painting over that and then painting in a new eye based on the position of the beak. And that actually ended up working out. See, I put it a little further forward than it was before, and it actually made it look a little less pissed off. So that worked out really well. I've always found it really interesting how bird legs bend in the opposite direction of humans. So it would be like having kneecaps at the back of your legs instead of in the front. Fascinating. Well, we're now getting to the end of this video, and I hope you enjoyed this video and this process. And like I said before, if you want to paint along with me, head over to my Patreon where you get the real-time videos and everything that goes along with that. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!